All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good
This is
morning.
NbS. NbS. Very quiet. Okay, let's see that. Very understandable because this is already the fourth day of the course. But actually, congratulations, it's still more than halfway. Okay, we are very nearly there. Okay, so but again, on our last day on Saturday, we're gonna have the final presentation. Okay, for those who would like to have the certificate, of course. So who would like to have the certificates? Please raise your hand. Yeah, there are some like yeah, quite a few. Okay, and I think it's very good and it will look nice on your CV as well. Okay, so today is dedicated to Biochar. So anybody have heard about? I think I should ask. Has anybody haven't heard about Biochar? Please raise your hand. Is this your first time? Okay, quite a few. Okay, I believe that after today, maybe hopefully there will be kind of an eye-opening kind of event. I hope, yes. And maybe you can find some applications. I think actually you work on the aquaculture, right? And I think we saw some papers that related to biochar or aquaculture. Okay, so I think this maybe this chat that we can exchange. And today I hope that we can learn together. And I think today will be lighter than the previous days. I think in the previous day, have been lectures after another, something like that. Today will be maybe half of that, because on the first half, yes, there will be lectures after the lectures and so on. But then in the latter half of the day, we're gonna have lots of hands-on experiments. Okay, and Dr. Jamde, who was with us, okay, he has prepared the water filtration experiments. Okay, so we're gonna maybe our hands a bit dirty and have some fun. All right, so in this morning, so we have got like maybe 4 or 5 speakers. Okay, and starting with myself. So I will just try to set the scene for the rest. All right, and okay, so let's start. So my name is Apiniti, and because today we have some newcomers, especially our friend from India, okay, who are actually actively involved with the biochar research and colleagues. So I will talk about NbS for disaster risk reduction. So I particularly focus on the biochar as an NbS tool for disaster risk. And my background is in civil engineering and geotechnical engineering. So we do quite a bit about the slope stabilization, erosion control, which means that my talk will be very much related to that particular topic. So you saw the slides many times in this class, in this course. So we saw the landslide problem, not just in Thailand, but around the world. And we also have the forest fires. Some of them are natural, some of them are kind of man-made. Some of the disaster related to activity, mining activity that can actually kind of transport it. Okay, so there are quite big issues going on here. And on top of that, we got a question from on the industry that related to the carbon footprint. So people started to put the carbon tax in various sectors. So the industries got kind of pressure to reduce their carbon footprint. There are mechanisms like a carbon removal, something like that, carbon market. There are some kind of trade barriers that if you want to trade outside your country and from the borders, you need to have that adjustment for the carbon emission. Okay, so this particular situation can be quite stressful. Okay, on one side we got the pressure from the disaster, and on the other side, you need to have you need to make some money, and then you need to fulfill your carbon removal needs. Then there is this term popping up biochar subsidy, which is quite a big thing in Europe, I think, and so maybe in Thailand, a lot of people talk about biochar. So let's hear what it is. So according to the World Biochar Certificate definition, bio, living things, and char, it is a porous carbonaceous material produced by pyrolysis, biomass. And it's applied so that the contained carbon remains stored as a carbon sink. So I think I like the keywords. Pyrolysis, carbonaceous materials. It has, because it's created from the biomass, which means that it has a cellular structure like this, and due to the pyrolysis, it retains this kind of porous structure. And this is the key. Okay, this is the key properties of the biochar. And another keyword is the carbon sink. Okay, because we want this biochar to be underground or to be embedded in some kind of the inner materials like the building construction, building materials, and so on. So it's not meant to be burned for energy generation. Okay, so this char is not actually for burning, for cooking, etc., etc. So, and another keyword is pyrolysis. Okay, so there are various ways of pyrolysis. Okay, according to World Biochar Certificate, the temperature ranging is quite large for this definition, 350 degrees C to 1,000 degrees C. Okay, so maybe for those who are not familiar with pyrolysis, other speakers are going to focus more. I think Dr. Jarudet will talk about this. But let me just show very simple kind of analogy that is I took it from Biochar Institute. That you light a match like this. Okay, so there will be various processes going on, like the combustions near the flame here, and the temperature near this combustion zone is quite large. Okay, so it can be like 1,500, something like that. So it will be combustion of the gas, and so you can see that when you light a match like this, all this will be burned, and there will be not so much smoke on top of the combustion zone after you light the match. There will be some gas, some smoke, at the first time when you light the match. But after the combustion is going on, it will combust out all this gas. And then in this zone, you've got the pyrolysis. It will leave out this black and carbonaceous materials, and so the temperature range is like this. So it's about 200 and 500, 600, something like that. Okay, the amount of oxygen involved in pyrolysis would be quite limited. Okay, so that's the key that you got the thermal conversion of the biomass into the carbons. So another example from Biochar journal that if you burn piles of wood like this, there are differences between lighting near the top and lighting near the bottom. Okay, so on the left is lighting near the top. Then you got the combustion on top. And then below, in the middle of the pile, you got pyrolysis. Whereas if you light the pile at the bottom, you will have more smoke. So you can see that just by different ways of lighting these wood piles, you can have different results. So there are art of burning. You see, this is like an art of open air burning. You can actually do the open air burning without much smoke if you do it properly. Okay, and this leads to what they call the artisanal biochar, or they put it quantity killing. Okay, I think it was developed in Switzerland, if I'm not wrong, and in Japan as well. So, but it's like an indigenous kind of way. So I think many people around the world use it since the ancient time. They can use the one pit or something like that, and the thing is that we will have the combustion on the top, and then in the middle we have the pyrolysis. So in the afternoon, yes, you will actually have the hands-on experience on this topic. And that is actually artisanal biochar production. So in Thailand, okay, if you are Thai, you can access to YouTube and see all this kind of the local kind of wise men, wise persons. And so that use the quantity killing is 1,000 Thai. So it's called artisanal biochar production. And for this artisanal, the quantity or the quantity, you don't actually distinguish the separate the combustion zone and the pyrolysis zone. But if you completely compartmentalize, you divide the zone of combustion and the pyrolysis, like FC or the retort that Dr. Orasa from Social Science in Kasetsart University has developed. You have a slightly more upgraded that you can make use of the flame here for cooking. And there are medium scale biochar production, and there are large scale biochar production that can do a batch type or continuous type. Of course, the cost related to the production of the biochar will vary. But you can see that we have a pyramid here. And I think most of the biochar production in the country now is still artisanal biochar production. Okay, so and I think that it's actually then now people are gonna ask that how can we make a good biochar with the artisanal biochar production? Like I want to share this just not my study, but other people's study that show that biochar prepared at 450 to 150 degrees Celsius for 4 months for restoration. And this kind of range of temperature is achievable with the artisanal biochar production. Okay, there are other issues about the pH, the cation capacity that related to the biomass, the raw materials that used to make biochar. So how does biochar lead to the carbon removal? Biochar leads to the carbon removal because it can be explained using this simple mechanism that the plants will absorb the carbon dioxide through the photosynthesis and then turn this carbon dioxide into the carbon that's stored within the biomass. So all this biomass, it has been cut, treated, as in the agriculture factories and turned into the leftover. The normal practice followed by farmers is to burn these leftovers. Okay, which means that it will actually return the CO2, the carbon dioxide, into the air. Okay, so instead of that kind of malpractice, so we turn this leftover into the biochar through pyrolysis. And then we put this biochar underground, which is the stable carbon form. Okay, according to the studies, maybe it lasts for hundreds or thousands of years, depending on the carbon stability. So you can do some life cycle assessment, and after that, they're going to focus more on that. So now, from a practitioner point of view, okay, now we kind of realize that biochar is quite useful. We can use it as a carbon removal, but maybe people care less about carbon removal as opposed to the productivity of the agriculture land. And there have been a lot of studies showing that the high porosity of this biochar is improve the soil, so it amends the soil. It can actually attract the water into these small pores, and it can filter some contamination. So this leads us to conduct a very simple exercise with the local community. So on the cornfield slopes in Chiang Mai, in northern Thailand, there are a lot of severe rivers and valley erosion because of the lack of the soil water conservation. Okay, so we suggest that if we build a small check tank using some soil bags and we dig that old pit, and then instead of burning this the maize stalk, so we just kind of cut this and put this in this corn pit, and then turn it into biochar using the corn pit pyrolysis. Okay, so this is not really open air. It is open air burning, but this is a control burning, control pyrolysis. Okay, I think they call it the flame curtain pyrolysis. Flame curtain pyrolysis. We got a flame that acts as a curtain. So, but actually, it is kind of artisanal, which means that you need some skills, some kind of art. Okay, so maybe there are less uniformity of the biochar produced using this method, but we find that the properties are quite acceptable. So there have been we have been talking a lot, and yesterday we went to the Jakiti Park, right? And the personal evidence forest park said that there are a lot of tree trimmings, okay, that need to be handled, okay. And I mentioned to him about biochar, and he said that he has heard about biochar for quite some times, and he is very interested in that. And their issue that how can they turn the wood cuttings into biochar, and there is a location issue as well. That maybe we need to transport the wood cuttings into somewhere at the suburban area, and then turn this wood into biochar to treat the soil. And we can use this biochar together with the NbS concepts to fulfill the sponge city. Maybe we put the biochar as an ingredient in the green room, in rain gardens. And there are some studies in Chiang Mai University that they combine, or even at Kasetsart, they put the biochar with the polo pavement, and maybe John will present that about the porous concrete, right? Maybe it's another interesting topic. Okay, so if we can incorporate the biochar into all these NbS, and because biochar has got a lot of porosity, we hear a lot about porous, this terms, right? Porosity, sponge, and so on. And biochar, it looks like a sponge. So I think it falls nicely into this whole concept of NbS. So it can be slowly release the water into the drainage network, for water resource, evapotranspired by plants, and so on. So, but when we have not the urban setting, but the rural setting like this, maybe we need to think about ways to produce the biochar, whether it should be centralized or decentralized. Like this paper by last year, compare the decentralized production system and the decentralized production system at the community levels. Okay, and then compare that, contrast that with the open field burning of rice straw. Yes, he mentioned that the decentralized production is quite useful. It's quite useful for removing the air pollution system in China. So maybe this is something that we can think about. However, when we want the decentralized systems, we really need to train the trainers. Okay, so there are standards. So quite luckily, a lot of people think likewise. They think the same. So like Carbon Standards International, which are by organization that set up their standards. I got a lot of help from Biochar Institute. They've got like guidelines for carbon sink certificate for artisan biochar production. So see, they empower the farmers to make the biochar themselves. I think they even write an article say that it's one way of what is the word? Democratize. Yeah, they say this word, democratize the biochar production. So they empower the communities. But of course, the communities has to be trained. So the organization like a Warm Heart Foundations and Warm Pai and Biochar Life, so they became the trainers. So the so-called what they call the C-Sync manager. So they are certified trainers. They are what they call the C-Sync manager, that they can do the trainings to the artisan, and then but of course they have to be audited. They have to be audited so that their methods and their procedures used to produce biochar, artisan biochar, are recognizable. Okay, so their biochar production has to be along with the MRV, which are monitoring, reporting, and verification. Okay, and this MRV can be paper-based. Okay, so it's just normal MRV, or it can be digital, and that will be DMRV. Okay, so we're gonna see some kind of sensors that we can use for the MRV in the afternoon. Okay, so there are so many usefulness of the biochar. We can go on and on, for a day or two. Okay, so there are many people interested, and aging materials. People use the biochar as animal feeding and animal waste and so on. But of course, when it comes to consumption of the biochar like this, I think one need to be particularly careful. So there are biochar standards, and I think you will hear later from Dr. Chanchana that in Thailand, how we developing the biochar standard. There are various categories, okay, of how you use the biochar. So this guideline using the biochar for the animal husbandry. And on the other side, okay, in Thailand, Dr. Orasa, he has developed a lot of community kind of movements that are like urban farming, okay, so they turn biochar, they turn the woods or the leftover woods, wood cuttings, landscape trimmings like that into biochar, and then use the biochar to create a compost from the waste, from the food waste. And I follow her at my house too. So at my house, we no longer have any food, any waste going to the municipal. So we don't produce any waste from our foods. We use the biochar and turn this into soils. And now whatever I throw away, from my foods, I got it back a few months after. If I eat, papaya seed will turn back into papaya trees, and we got the papaya that way in a few months. So this is the example of the urban farming. Okay, so they can turn the like the dead leaves or something like that you can gather in your house and turn into biochar. And but there are issues that if your neighbors don't truly understand what you're doing, they start to complain because they see some smoke coming up. So we need to do the biochar, artisanal biochar production quite carefully to make the smoke. Okay, so these are like some of the examples. Use the biochar to grow the vegetation and improve the soils. So now let's a little bit of science about this biochar water retention. This is a work that Dr. Jarode and I have been working on. We're writing a paper, and we're looking at the water retention of various kind of biochar in terms of the what we call the suction or the water potential. Okay, so there are a range of the suction that we're looking at. For the suction, we are interested in this quite a large suction, so it's more than 1 megapascal. And of course, the suction beyond this 1.5 or 2 megapascal is not particularly useful for plants because the plant can transpire water, maybe theoretically up to this wilting point. So this range of biochar will be useful for plants. Which means that, when you look at the PET or the specific surface area, okay, you need to be careful that not always the high specific surface area of biochar will be useful for plants. Because if it's in the range that, you have very, very fine forms, the biochar may not be able, it will be just too much attraction of the water towards the biochar forms. Okay, just too much attraction, and then the plants cannot compete with this suction of biochar. And the surface variety also quite important, and Dr. Jarode can talk more on that. But sometimes picture to show. And this is the work that Tech and the KU been working together and using the wood, this one, to actually categorize the emission. And we're gonna see it in the afternoon. And we are quite fortunate to have Simon Lott from Ithaca. He's going to join us online. I'm not sure if you will join online in the real time, but we prepared a video of this presentation. He will focus on this topic of emission of the gas from artisanal biochar production. So now he's currently in Nepal, so he's in the field trip. Okay, so he's not sure about his internet connection, so kind of this video. Okay, so now I just want to talk just a little bit about the application of biochar in my particular fields. And I've got some PhD students that work there, gonna give the flash presentation on that. Okay, so we're looking at this thing called capillary barrier. I think some of you are working on this. Capillary barrier is the kind of a soil cover, slope cover that is used to prevent the infiltration into the ground, into the original ground, and also prevent the fertility rise as well. Okay, so we use cross layers to cut off the capillarity. So we need a cross grain layer on the original grounds, and then another fine grain layers on top. And these fine grain layers has to be of smaller pore size, has to be higher suction. You see, this blue line here show the water retention curve of the fine grain. So the suction should be higher. Suction should be higher. And when we add the biochar to the fine grain, we can have this effect very nicely. Okay, and the biochar can be a good substrate for growing these plants and so on. So the cross-layer layers, we can use other materials. It can be the cross-grain biochar, but I think this is the idea that we have. I think right now we turn to the gravel instead. Or the recycled materials from the buildings, like the rubble from the building demolition activities. So based on this principle of unsaturated soil mechanics, okay, we can develop a hopper system to mimic the nature work. So it's the bio-inspired, the nature-inspired. Instead of having the concrete pavement, concrete kind of hopper. And lots of people working on biochar construction materials like a biochar cement, biochar brick, asphalt, insulator, land hopper, and so on. So industry started to actually manufacture this kind of materials, but there are still issues about like the scale up and the feasibility and the cost and so on. So people are looking at the ways, to overcome such limitations. Okay, but in theory, the research has been there for quite a few years, many years. So you can see that there are lots of research papers. I think there are so many of them that even some journal they prohibit the paper on this biochar. But of course, you find another way of looking at it. And I just want to show you some of our attempts to use biochar in the road construction and slow stabilization. So we use biochar in the building barriers. This one, this is the first try, so it's very small strips here. But now we enlarge it to bigger strips. So we hope that we can scale up this kind of technique in the future. So we can try to we propose the trimmings from landscape management of the highways into biochar porous materials and put it as a cover. So this show another examples. You see that this area it has a lot of severe erosion problems, scaling erosion, river erosions, and after some time the fall will be eroded, and then the big landslide will happen. See, now it's just the erosion problem, the shallow slide, but without proper management, the bigger landslides is actually will come. So we show the examples like this. We need to stabilize the flow, and we need to properly prevent the erosions. Of course, when we mix the biochar with the soils, it doesn't improve the soil immediately. Okay, you need to have the synergy between the plants and the biochar and the soil, and the biochar has to be mixed with the compost as well. Okay, so we have a nice ingredient for it to work. So this is just a monitoring results to show that when you have the biochar mixed in the topsoils, you got less fluctuating. It will be better to show in this. I think it's so capillary barriers. So the fluctuation of the moisture is a lot less than if you have the bare slopes. So it regulates the moisture. And when you have a fluctuation in the moisture in the soil, This is no good. This is it's gonna cause the cracks of the soils, and in the rainy seasons, water gonna infiltrate too fast, and then you have a lot of cracks like this. The soil will lack the application, will lack the cohesions, and it will finally eroded. So this is the concept that we use biochar with vegetable grass that you see in on first day, on day one of this short course. And yes, the result is quite good. So there are other studies about the biochar on the soil properties. Okay, so when you mix the biochar with the soils, how do you think it's gonna change the soil properties? Anyone you want to suggest when you mix biochar with the soil, how will it affect the soil permeability? Any idea? You think it will lower or you increase? You think it will increase? Do you think adding biochar will increase the permeability? Okay. Who think it will decrease? Okay, no one. The answer is that both are correct. So it depends. Yeah, it depends. It depends. But for this, it decreases. Okay, because it depends on what soils you try to improve. Okay, if you start with the sandy materials and you mix the kind of fine grain or grounded biochar, you actually have the ineffective pores inside the sands. And then if you actually reduce, like this case, it significantly reduce the saturated permeability by about 20 times. Okay. So, however, if you mix biochar with clay soils, okay, if you ask the farmers, they know better actually than us, because they know that if you want to improve the clay soil, they put the large grains of biochar. Okay, and that will actually make the clay soil more aerated, and the water can flow faster. Okay, so, but the nice thing is that it will increase the porosity of the soils. Okay, so it will improve the aeration of the soils, and it makes the soil lighter. See the specific gravity, it's lighter. So if you dig the soil that mixed with biochar, it will be easier to dig it, which means that the plants can penetrate. The roots doesn't require so much energy to root for the root to penetrate to the ground. And then there is a moisture sensitivity or the volume change of the soil when it's dry. Okay, when the water content is reduced, the void will decrease. For the bare soil without the biochar, okay, there will be the shrinkage, a lot of shrinkage. But when you mix the soil with biochar, there will be a lot less shrinkage. And the shrinkage of the soil during drying is not good for plants. Because some plants, if you grow it in the clay soil, when the clay dry and desiccated, it shrinks and it actually squeezes the roots. It squeezes the roots and actually cause the plants to be under stress. Another aspect of biochar is the erosion resistance. This is the topic of my former master students. And yeah, when he finished his test, he said that, mixing biochar alone is not good for erosion. Okay, because it actually increases the erosion if you mix the soil with biochar alone. So because imagine this one is a kind of a sandy, clay sand. So the biochar doesn't have the cohesion, and it's very light. The particle of biochar is very light. So between that, you need to actually have some mulching. You need to have some container like this that contain the soil and biochar mixture. So it's very important for the very steep slope like this. Okay, but for if not so steep, yes, you can mix the biochar, but you need some kind of the fuzzy or something to retain the biochar on the slope ground. Another studies that we have been working on is trying to quantify how biochar make the drought tolerant plants. So this we cooperate with the party which specialize in bamboo and biochar production. So you can see that if you mix biochar with the soil and then put the plants under stress, this is the ideal case. Just like let's say if you raise a baby, if you feed the baby very well so that it has all the nutrients and so on. If in the future if we got under stress or something like that, he got all the strength and he got all the stamina, something like that, to dig deeper, to have roots and deeper roots like this. But if you don't keep the biochar and if you spray the plants, it just doesn't have enough nutrients, not enough energies to root that. Okay. But if we have a biochar and a lot of irrigations, the plant just too lazy. It doesn't want to dig deep to find the ground. So I think based on this, if you put the biochar, if you amend the soil with the biochar actually creates some stress in the soil too, because biochar has got the pore size, so it has this action. So the roots actually have to have some osmotic potential to transpire, to draw the water out of the biochar root stock. And then the plant has got some stress. This is good. So this is the manageable stress. Just like people, right? So when you have under a little bit of stress, but not too much, you'll be fine. You'll be stronger. So biochar, just to conclude. Okay, so I have maybe like 5 minutes question answer. Biochar is the porous carbonaceous materials that is produced by pyrolysis of biomass and be applied so that the contained carbon remains stored as carbon sink. So the stored carbon should be in the soil or can be in building materials. Okay, and I show you just very few examples of biochar for soil amendment and bioengineering. And it just potentially is part of the filtration system and part of quantity elements. And I introduced the porosity of biochar and surface variety are the key features that can affect the water retention, particularly in these applications. So I hope that maybe that shed some lights, for those who hasn't heard about the biochar before, maybe a little bit better. But wait for other speakers, they're very, very interesting. So be more coming up. So any questions so far? It's done.
Thank you for the nice presentation. That's been interesting. Perhaps I can also use biochar in my future projects. It will in fact cause more problems on a slope. So now I'm asking, is there an optimal percentage of biochar which can be used to provide better performance results?
Yeah, this is very spot on. Yeah. Because yes, there are optimum dosage of biochar, and I think for this case is about 3 to 5% by weight or something like that. But then the optimum dose can vary according to different kind of soil, to the nutrients, to the plants as well. Okay, so yes, I think we don't need too much. We don't need too much of the biochar. And I haven't stressed too much, but the importance of inoculating or mixing the biochar with microbes, with the fertilizer, with the compost. Okay, this cannot be overlooked, because sometimes if you mix the raw biochar in the soil, the good results will not appear until 2 years after. Okay, because it at the initial phase, the biochar will attract the nutrients from the soil. It will compete with the plants. Yeah. Okay. So maybe one more questions or discussion or any, I don't know, comments. Yes,
so when we have done this production of biochar with the farmers, what do they do with the fumes? Is there any solution with the fumes? You mentioned something.
At the moment, for the farmer scale, they normally just let the foam out, because they haven't got technology yet. But I think in the future, I think there are people who are developing, like MTech, thinking about the kiln, like creating the kiln that actually get rid of maybe make use of the foams. But right now, we're trying to educate the farmers that there are ways to open burning without foam, without so much foams, like controlling the moisture of the biomass. Okay, so today we see how we control the moisture content and something. But this is an issue that, yes, artisanal biochar production can produce a lot of foams, especially during the rain season when the wood are wet. It's very difficult, actually. Thank you for the question. Take time to digest a little bit. If not, okay, I would like to end my talk now.